are Seraphim.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Generation Space podcast. Today, I'm excited to welcome Tristan Fletcher, the CEO of Chai. Chai specialises in artificial intelligence-driven market intelligence and price forecasting for raw materials and commodities. Their platform, Chai Insight, provides users with access to institutional views, commodity pricing, forecasts, and market analysis, enabling informed procurement strategies. And their product, Chai Protect, provides commodity price insurance. But I'll let Tristan tell you all a little bit about that. Welcome, Tristan, to the podcast.
It's an honour to be here.
And I'm pleased to welcome back to the podcast Seraphim Partner Andre, who works closely with Tristan and the team at Chai. Hi, Andre.
Hi, Leah. Hi, Tristan.
Tristan, can you tell everyone a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are today?
I will. Thank you, Leah. So I read manufacturing engineering at university, and that got me interested in what I'd call the physical world in making stuff. And following that, I went to work as a management consultant, serving the kind of customers we work with now at Chai, companies with large physical supply chains. And I was helping them kind of choose where to put their factories and how to make their factories as efficient as possible, things like that. And then while doing that, we helped save a well-known fast-moving consumer goods company an awful lot of money using some artificial intelligence techniques. And my boss at the time said, well done, this is great. Why don't you go and study AI properly? And I did that. I started another master's in AI and got really excited about this new technology as it was a couple of decades ago now. And then moved into financial services, working as an old style trader, moving money around and hoping it stuck to my fingers, lots of shouting and in particular being shouted at, and was concurrently still learning about AI and trying to apply it in this new world of financial services. And they're focused more and more on commodities and raw materials and the kind of things, again, we're supporting at Chai. And then carried on my academic research. So I was doing a PhD and then a postdoc, learning about these state-of-the-art, quite esoteric technical tools, but getting to apply them in the real world, which is a great opportunity. And that culminated in roles in banks and hedge funds, but in particular as head of AI at a well-known hedge fund, where we were using these AI methods on these esoteric data sets to speculate commodity prices. And that's kind of where the idea came from China. I'll talk about that later. But it's the combination of working in what I call the physical world, the more financial world of commodities, with the backdrop in AI that led me and the co-founders to Chai.
That's super interesting. You're a super early adopter of this technology. Would you tell everyone a little bit about how did Chai first come about?
Yes, well, thank you. So I think every founder you speak to has a creation myth of their company that's mostly true and slightly retrofitted to suit the narrative of the time. And then after a while, you actually forget what was true and what wasn't. And I'm going to give you some version of this creation myth. The co-founders and myself were working in this hedge fund and thought, why not take this capability that we have in predicting where commodity prices are going to move for the sake of speculation and bring it to a different market? So instead of helping our investors make more money because we've made bets on the price of oil or corn moving in a particular direction, why not go to the people who are actually using these products, these raw materials, and the products we enjoy as consumers, be it biscuits or cars or pharmaceutical products, and help them navigate this world of raw materials and commodity prices. So take the satellite picture data sets we were working with, the movement of boats we were tracking, and all the AI that went around capitalizing on that data. And instead of helping speculators, help people in procurement or risk management or budgeting in corporates. And that was the general idea. And then it was crystallized when I was invited on a trade mission to China by the government to sell AI to the Chinese, which is a very humbling experience. But a state-owned company out there, asked me to forecast the price of copper for them. They were making copper pipes and buying copper as a volatile raw material, turning it into pipes and selling on copper pipes, which is very prosaic, but that's what they were doing, and selling them on at a fixed price. So they're absorbing the price risk of this volatile copper And they said, can you forecast the price of it? And I said, yeah, of course. Built something that did that, sold it to them, and came back and thought, why not do this for the kind of companies I was speaking to at the beginning of my career, which I spoke about earlier as a management consultant. And then, as one of the co-founders says, we got the band back together. So the people are, kind of interested in this from the hedge fund world, and formed Chai some 6 years ago now to capitalize on the kind of energy we saw from taking this skill set from the banks and hedge funds and bringing it to the physical world, the real world that we're operating in.
So just on that, so it's clear. So your current clients are these end users.
Yes, exactly. It's the company just before consumer would interact with it. So well-known brands in many cases, people who make food, people who make infrastructure, people who make high-end cars, all household names. We do have customers who are at the other end of the supply chain. So people taking stuff out of the ground, people processing it without getting sort of too economical or into economic theory about it. A lot of what we do is about protecting margins. It's about protecting the difference between the input costs, the raw material costs of a business, and what they're selling it for. And margins tend to be the thinnest the further up a supply chain you go. So the company you go and buy your biscuits from, there's probably got the thinnest margins of anyone in their supply chain. That's who we're targeting.
And what about Chai's mission today? Has it changed since launch? What are you working on at the moment?
So the mission hasn't changed, and genuinely it hasn't changed. We set out to help companies navigate and deal with volatility in raw material prices. And we started off thinking that the best way of doing that was telling them what was going to happen next. So saying to someone, price of aluminium is going to go up a lot. You probably want to buy all your aluminium now and save yourself some money, which you've done for many of our customers. It turns out that that's great if you're some huge sophisticated corporate who can do something with that information, who can maybe, you're agile enough, you can buy your stuff earlier, you've got enough buying power, you can negotiate with your supplier and say, that's an unreasonable price. But a lot of companies aren't like that. They're not that agile. Smaller companies tend not to be. And in the theme of democratization, where we've taken this esoteric capability from the rarefied world of banks and hedge funds and brought it to the physical world, the corporates that make the products we enjoy as consumers, continuing on that, we want to be there for the majority of companies who want having billions of pounds revenue, who do have huge buying power and negotiation power. And that means giving companies the ability to act on our forecasts. In many ways, we're selling a problem. We're telling people, particularly recently, the price of their input cost is going to go up. And they're like, thanks very much. I've got nothing about it. I'm not going to pay to be told I've got this problem. So we thought we need to work out a way of dealing with it, have a solution to the problem. And that's what we're really excited about. The mission hasn't changed, but I guess the way we're going after it is that we're bringing out a product that helps people with the price risk we're forecasting. So we say the price is going to go up. We're building a product that says, okay, if it goes above this price point, we, Chai, will pay you the difference. It's an insurance product. There are some companies who want prices to go down because they're selling something back to a market, and we'll do the opposite and pay out if the price goes below a certain point. So we're selling both the intelligence tool that tells people what their price risk is, and then another instrument that allows them to do something with the risk that we're forecasting. That's a more comprehensive way of addressing the problem we identified at the beginning of our journey and the mission we have.
Great. No, I like that. And do you price your solutions accordingly?
Well, on the licensing, on the intelligence tool, we have a SaaS, a software as a solution product that scales with the number of people who might be using it in a company and how many commodities they have, which will be an indirect proxy for how large a company is. It's not a direct pricing relationship, but a huge corporate will have more seats and will end up paying a bit more. On the insurance product, it's very straightforward. It's a function of how much risk they're underwriting, which is a function of how much raw material they're purchasing, which is a very strong relationship with how large it is. Clearly the likes of very well-known drinks brand who spend billions on their packaging materials each year are going to be underwriting much larger amounts of risk than some small local recycling firm. It naturally scales with the size of company without us having to have some kind of different tiers of pricing.
And what everyone's excited to hear about on our podcast, could you give everyone some insights in how Chai leverages space-based data in your solutions? And specifically, what type of satellite data do you use and how does it contribute to your predictive models and also your future decision-making processes?
Of course, before I go into the details of that, and I know that I'm blowing my own trumpet here, but it is really cool. We basically take this satellite picture above an open cast mine or some plantation growing cocoa in Ghana, and through a satellite picture and a bunch of other kind of filters of numbers, etc., into a cloud, and then our machine learning are influencing the purchasing of chocolate or influencing the manufacturing of some car somewhere. And we've taken this like high level data, applied these really esoteric techniques, and are changing the physical world directly through AI. And I absolutely love that, the melding of these two worlds. How do we do it? And what kind of satellite systems we use? So we use two different satellite providers. I'm not going to go into their names. We have one that is focused on the metals world in particular, so looks at open cast mines and says, I've seen this big hole. Is it a bit bigger? How much bigger is it than the last time I saw it? And that's a proxy for activity. It also looks at recycling plants and says, there's this much infrared coming out the building. That's got a relationship with how active that factory is, and that's got a relationship with the activity index we consume. And we have that in a lot of different places, areas of interest related to the metals. There is another provider that we use for stuff that's being grown. So cocoa, wheat, sugar, for example. And there we look at pictures of what's taken, what color is predominant in those pictures, and that we'd expect for that point in the growing cycle of the thing being grown, and convert that into an idea of yield. Basically, does this wheat look meant to be looking this kind of color for this point in its growing cycle, or is it actually more advanced or less advanced as an indicator of price? And these are what I'd call sort of very early stage indicators of price action. If I see a reduction in activity for what I typically expect for this time of year for this mine, it's going to give me information sort of 3 to 6 months out on the price impact of the finished aluminium or iron ore, in the case of something that's being grown, the cocoa that comes to market. So it gives us, through some clever data science, a nice signal that's quite far into the future on what the price might be, and complements the other data sets we're using, be they inventory, stocks of stuff sitting in houses, the boat movements we're tracking, the weather data we're looking at, etc. These all add together to come up with the forecast we have into the future.
Really fascinating. And I don't know if you're able to share, is there any stories on the accuracy of that? Are you allowed to
I'm
share?
such a politician when it comes to answering accuracy, in that it's all a relative statement, and relative in different ways. So there are some markets that are really easy to forecast. It's actually quite easy to forecast the price of aluminium. So in terms of directional accuracy, saying what the price of it's going to be, is it going to be higher than it is now in 6 months' time? You get pretty high directional accuracy, 80s, 90s%. Something like oil, Brent crude, we are better than anything I've ever seen in banks or hedge funds, but only marginally so, because Iranians attack the Saudis, the Americans have issues with the Chinese, etc. There's just loads of stuff you can't forecast. What you call potentially the aleatoric uncertainty. There's just the randomness of the world that we're never going to get a grip on. The epistemic uncertainty, the stuff that if you knew everything, you'd be able to forecast with, we're pretty good at. We've got most of it covered. And in some markets, there's more epistemic uncertainty than aleatoric, like aluminium. In some markets, like geopolitical ones like oil, it's the other way around. And then the other relative statement I'd make is that the kind of techniques other people might be using are the best way of comparing us to. So in oil, even though in absolute terms we're not that good, we're still better than what I know hedge funds will be using internally. One perhaps interesting fact about commodities markets is that it's very hard to outperform a forecast that is simply drawing a line on a piece of paper and saying, this thing's going up, it's probably going to carry on going up. That sounds like I'm being quite pejorative, but trend following in commodities markets is an incredibly powerful technique. There are economic reasons why if something is going up, it's going to carry on going up, to do with information flow, or even how things are grown or reared if they're animals, etc. And actually outperforming that sometimes is hard. So it's the ability to augment this kind of cornerstone of commodity market forecasting that we try to achieve, and what we compare ourselves to when we do forecasting.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thanks, Tristan. Andre, everyone would like to hear from the investor perspective on Chai. Where did Seraphim first come across Chai? And can you tell everyone a little bit about why they stood out?
Well, that's a very good question because it was actually before my time. And so I'm telling you the story here that I've heard, but Tristan might chime in and correct me. So, if for those listeners who are familiar with our ecosystem map, know we're investing in anything upstream where there's a physical space element, but we're also investing downstream in businesses that are enabled by space-based communication, GPS, or geospatial data in a meaningful way. And so a few years back, the team invested in quite a high number of constellations that were sending up satellites. And so the focus shifted on the downstream element. And part of that research led to Chai popping up on the team's radar. And so I believe they got in touch and learned about Tristan and his team and what they were doing and got excited. And so why did we get excited? Because we liked what we saw in terms of the product roadmap and the large potential. The global commodity market is gigantic, and helping a lot of the companies along the line to hedge their exposure in the right way would lead to theoretically a very large outcome for us. I'm looking at Tristan. Maybe he can add another layer of color to this, but that's the story I was told until I took over. And now Tristan and I have been on a journey for 3 years nearly.
And a great journey it's been, Andre, so far. My understanding of why Seraphim first engaged with Chai is probably the same with slightly different language, really, is that Seraphim invests in space technology. A lot of the previous investments have been, massive capex projects, huge satellites, etc., in the sky. It's probably pretty useful from a portfolio diversification and financial cash flow situation to have a company that's the other end of the spectrum, that's a software as a services company at the time, and generates money in a very different way. Hopefully not requiring billions of capex, though. I look forward to the next check from you guys being in the billions, coming in and building out something that then takes 10 years for us to pay off. Even at the pace Chai has moved, which has been fantastic and consistent, it's still a lot quicker than space architecture. That's one thing. And then, as Andre says, the total addressable market of what we're doing is massive. Because, as I was saying earlier, with an insurance product, you get exposure to how much people are spending on raw materials. It's $1 trillion market. And we're not just capturing parts of that, the small corporates, with this democratization aspect. We are actually working with some incredibly large companies too to support them with commodities. So the total addressable market, which is the big thing investors always get excited about, is mega here. I assume one of the reasons for the continued enthusiasm from all of you.
Yeah, definitely. You're addressing so many different verticals. And from our perspective, from a portfolio perspective, you're so commercial, like you can working with the rest of the portfolio, helping them commercialize their tech. Perhaps, there's so many different routes, I think. Can you give everyone a bit of an understanding of the scale of Chai today, where you started, where you are now, like where your offices are, that kind of thing?
I'll start with the customers, because that's what we're here for. That sounds really cheesy, but that's where we're most excited. And one thing that strikes me is how international we are. The origins of the name are about, how tea was spread 2,000 years ago. The word chai is one of the words for tea, the other one being words that sound like tea. And I think when it was spread by sea, it was pronounced tea. And when it was spread by land, it was pronounced chai. And I like the fact that we're a mega international company. And we've got clients in Thailand, Morocco, Hungary, the States, China, Belgium, to name but a few. So we're all over the world, and we're operating with companies of very different scales. We've got some of the largest fast-moving consumer goods and food production companies in the world, huge pharmaceuticals, all the way down to small chocolate farmers or small mining companies. That is really exciting. So we're geographically all over the place. And in terms of industries we're serving, we do have some particular focuses, but we're working with such a diversity of organizations. So that scale is huge. And then the next thing I'd say is, I'm, as you probably noticed, quite geeky and into the technical side of things, is the scale of data we're working with. So we've got all these satellite pictures coming in from different providers, tracking every boat movement globally with an idea of what's on it. That's quite a mean feat. And then all these other data sets like currencies and other market data. So we're dealing with tens of thousands of data points every day to come up with our forecasts. And we're now forecasting, I think, almost 90 different raw material prices. We started off doing the popular ones like Brent crude and some of the metals, and we're now into quite niche things like recycled PET, the plastic and stuff like that.
Was that because people were coming to you and saying there's a need for this?
Yeah, we didn't get out of bed in the morning and go, we need to go after recycled PET. But we did with oil. We kind of knew that oil would be the bedrock of what we do, and aluminium and things like that. But client demand has been very strong in packaging materials, not just on the forecasting side, but also in Chai Protect. And in fact, the most interest we've had from the large corporates is underwriting risk and packaging materials because there is no financial market for them. So we've created this entire niche using, both Seraphim's capital, but also the instructions to satellite companies, etc., to do that. And that's really exciting. So it's the scale of data excites me, and how we've grown there for the scale of commodities we support, how we think about ourselves now.
Thanks, Tristan. You've touched on this already, but why is what you and Chai are doing so important?
It's important in several ways. The first one is this sense that the financial markets were set up to ostensibly serve farmers to begin with, and then corporates hedge out risk. But I remember looking this up recently, something like only 3% of the traded volume in futures is to do with risk mitigation. The rest of it is pure speculation. There is just the sense from our customers that the hedge funds and the banks know what's going on and they don't. And we're here to level to these to that knowledge and certainty and make people a bit more confident about what we're doing. And as a consequence, make these companies more successful. And it's not like there's a zero-sum game between them and the speculators, or even that there's a zero-sum game between different people in the same industry. We are here to make all of these people on the physical side and the corporate side better off, in particular the smaller ones. There is no way some small company who's doing something very useful in the world economy, maybe making drill bits to support some medical device somewhere, that is going to have access to an analyst who can tell him what the price of his raw materials are going to go do next, and therefore have some agency over what price he's paying his raw material business, etc. So there's a sense of just really bringing this capability to everyone. Democratization, I keep using that word, but that's how we feel. We're democratizing access to this skill set to everyone. And that, that's part of the narrative of AI in general. I'm not going to waffle on too much about where I see AI going, but something that's been fantastic is seeing this very privileged capability that you'd have to have some really expensive computer, a PhD in computer science, and be really good at software engineering to do machine learning, versus now when my teenage son can fool me. I know I shared WhatsApp when he's trying to convince us to go to a parents' evening and not get cross with him, using ChatGPT that he can access for free and just log in. I mean, what a change. It's democratization. And I'm excited to be part of that. We actually use ChatGPT in different ways. That's one thing. The other thing is that we've gone through a period of massive inflation recently, and I suspect we'll do again shortly if the trade protectionism we expect to happen in the States really takes hold. So we're going to have inflation again. There are people out there who are really struggling, and it is not too far sort of stretch the imagination to say that we're helping proverbial loaf of bread. We're making that cheaper. Our first customer to China is an organization that mills wheat for bread. So he basically serves the bakers that make most of the bread we buy in supermarkets. Our ability to control prices for them means that loaf of bread is cheaper. The everyday loaf of bread is slightly cheaper because of what we do at Chai. That's really cool. So we're helping smaller companies and we're helping the end consumer through their ability to not have to pass on increased costs. That's really cool. Excited that we're doing that.
Yeah, I agree. That's really cool. I don't think people would have seen it like that, like right down to the consumer who's buying the loaf of bread. I think that's really well explained. Andre, What makes Chai stand out? Are there any competitors? Like, is anyone else doing this as well?
Well, look, what makes Chai stand out from the competition? Well, first and foremost, the team, right? I think Tristan was talking about a bit earlier. There's a real passion for the commodities market, and the team has seen how it works at the hedge fund side in big finance. And taking this back into the real world just makes a massive difference. Yes, there is competition, but there was effectively competition when the business started it. And you look at I think they're kind of pricing agencies. They're pretty old school in a way, pretty slow, and they do not have the same technology backend. And so when we invested and ever since, what we really liked is that Chai is a trailblazer, changing out the marketplace. And over time now, what we really love is that what was built over many years, the pricing engine and the forecasting capabilities are now the bedrock for launching the insurance products, right? So you have that proprietary IP that no one else has, and you have the existing customers are now becoming your insurance customers. And so I think it's an incredible journey to where the business got today.
Yeah, and you mentioned this earlier. Obviously, everyone can hear that this is a huge market. And can you tell everyone a little bit more about that?
Trillions. I mean, look, you have to be a little bit more nuanced about it. But if you look at the global commodity spend, it is literally in the trillions. And importantly, if you look at global insurance, I just Googled it yesterday evening. I think the global insurance market is about 10 trillion US dollars. To make it a bit more sensible for the listeners, one of the initial insurance markets, right? The way to look at it is who's spending on what commodities. And I think you then cut it and slice it to understand what are the products where people would buy insurance, where there's no efficient hedge available today in the market, or the companies don't have the expertise to use it. And so then you start getting to a place where, you start to attack the opportunity. And so I think if we are going down the route of looking at packaging and other things, and you look at core geographies around the UK and wider Europe and the US, you're speaking about a multi-billion-dollar opportunity for Chai as the total addressable market. I think our best estimate at the moment is around 6 billion. But then you have to think about, if you go fully global, if you go into other commodities as well, it's going to be a multiple of that again.
We're all incentivized to come up with very large total addressable markets, but it's, the route to market, how do we go and attack that, in what order? And, we believe we've got a technical moat and a relationship with customers that prevents other people muscling in on that. You mentioned before, Andre, that one of the things you like about Chai's relationship with customers, and that's one of the things I like about it too, is that you can't go out and sell insurance before you have insurance in this country. It's illegal. But you can talk to people who are really selling something else to and have a good relationship with, and said, well, if we had this, would you buy it, and what would it look like? And that's given us a massive advantage. And I expect that advantage to persist as we go after that addressable market.
Tristan, what about, for you personally, Chai's biggest achievements to date?
Obviously, the Seraphim investments. Getting external validation from large, prestigious investors is really helpful. You have an idea, you think it's great, your friends say it's great, people who work with the say it's great. Don't put money behind it. Large, well-known, illustrious organizations put money behind it. It doesn't mean so much. That external validation is a massive milestone. And similar to that, quite early on, we managed to get a grant from the European Space Agency to develop some of our systems. So that was a real pat on the back as well from Europe. Some other milestones, which I put down on the whole to the hard work, in particular of our COO Marcus, are relationships with the price reporting agencies, who are people who come up with the price for the raw materials that aren't traded in a market. They effectively ring out all the people buying and selling a raw material and say, what should the price have been today? And they use that to settle contracts and things. And we've got some partnerships with the world's largest ones there. And that took a lot of tenacity. But because it was so difficult to do, we know other people aren't easily going to do it. And that's meant we've got a product that really works for our people, both on the forecasting side, but more importantly on the insurance side. And then signing up some huge brands, which I'm annoyingly I'm not allowed to mention, but let's say the two most prestigious UK high-end car manufacturers maybe the UK's largest pharmaceutical company. Not entirely sure where it stands in the hierarchy. The best known brand name when it comes to soft drinks, another one associated with coffee. Some huge names that we know on a personal basis and I've been working with for years. In some cases, with people who've been in different companies and they've just taken us with us each time. I love that. Going to a pub and drinking a very well-known drink and thinking I helped this company make that drink. And I think that's the one we all share the most. It's like, that's so cool. We're supporting X, Y, and Z.
That's super exciting. And what about any milestones coming up? Is there anything you can share?
Yes. So the thing that we are very excited about, and I'm sure Andre is our insurance product. So we've been building this insurance product for 2 years now, being kind of financial product design, talking to customers, but also kind of getting balance sheet support, etc. And we're on the cusp of that coming out. I've been saying that to our investors, believing it. It's any day now. I still believe it's any day now, and I really do believe it's any day now. We will have this product out.
What exactly is the product?
So this is putting our money where our mouth is, and when we forecast a price movement, being able to say to someone, look, if it goes above this point, we will pay you the difference. You pay us a premium, like you would for health insurance or car insurance. And if something happens, i.e. in this case, it goes above a price point, we will pay you that difference. So you basically cap how much you will pay for your raw materials. And in some cases, it's people who are selling some things. It's the other way around. We are putting a floor on how little they will have to sell it for.
Last question from me. At Seraphim, we always like to back visionary founders. What is your vision for a future when everyone knows chai globally and chai is a huge success?
I guess I wouldn't say when chai is a huge success, because I feel like it's a huge success already, but it could be more pervasive. So we've got some huge big names in a variety of industries, and that's great. But if we're here to democratize access to raw materials, intelligence, and insurance products, we want to be going to smaller guys, the non-early adopters, and actually making changes to the economy of like UK PLC that's not just the big names of the FTSE 100. That's when I'll feel like a success on the kind of democratic aspect of it, is when it's pervasive amongst the smaller companies in the industries we're already operating in, like fast-moving consumer goods, food production, automotive, and pharmaceuticals. So that's the first point. But the real one is insurance is a game changer. We will be the world's first company to insure raw material prices in the markets we're looking at. That means we can go out to anyone and help them with this thing that's just been uninsurable before. People are out there insuring buildings, they're insuring key person risk, all that kind of stuff. It's insane that they aren't insuring the biggest cost part of their operations, which is their raw materials. Raw materials can be like up to 95% of the cost base for some companies, and that is volatile and they can't control it. So getting that out and getting it not just in mega brand name companies, but again in the little guys, that's where chai will be going, that I've got a kick out of this. This is good capitalism. This is taking the risk back into the financial markets. Instead of just being speculation, it's moving it from 97% speculation to 20% speculation. It's addressing the kind of imbalance that's happening there, and that'll be amazing when it happens.
Excited for that to happen. Thank you so much, Tristan, for answering my questions today, and thank you to Andre.
Thank you both.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed that. Thank you.
3, 2, 1. We are Seraphim.